You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Anna K. Brown, a highly driven attorney at law admitted to practice in New York, Jamaica, Guyana, Anguilla, and now Montserrat. Montserrat, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, said it perfectly.
Congratulations, that was new. And with the firm, Stanbrook Prudhoe, I suggest everybody go look them up because they are handling cases across the Caribbean, doing work across borders. Anna is with us today, located in Kingston, Jamaica, focusing a lot on environmental cases in Guyana right now. So I just, right off the bat, I want to ask, Stanbrook Prudhoe, cool website, went there. Are you getting applications for attorneys to work there like every day? I mean, you're doing this Caribbean work, like you're like, yeah, we were here in the Caribbean doing this work. I mean, are people really wanting to come out there and like be like, okay, yeah, I'll work at a beach hut, you know?
I think I'm not privy to all the applications, but definitely I've gotten some solicitations myself. So
You
I'm
have,
pretty
okay.
sure I'm pretty sure that other, the boss, the two partners have been getting solicitations as well, because it's a great deal,
It is.
still being a
Looks
part
like
of the Caribbean and, earning good money, I think.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. So tell us where you're from, Anna Kay.
Well, I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. That's where I was born and raised. Specifically, I live up in the hills in somewhere called Belvedere. Always lived up in the hills. Yeah, and a lot of people would say it's country, but I personally don't think it is because it's so close.
Belvedere?
Belvedere.
Okay. That's okay. So that some people would say it's the country in the hills, but
Yeah,
you
because
don't.
some of my friends, they're like, oh my, when they come to my house, they're like, oh my God, it's such a long drive.
Oh, yeah.
It's perfect. You're away from the hustle and bustle of everything. You're
Right.
in the hills, you get to see nature, and it's, fabulous.
Sounds good. So like tell us a little bit of your backstory, like when you knew you wanted to be a lawyer.
Well, for me, I think I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I
Okay.
think it's it starts off with every family member, your nanny, everybody is telling you, no, you should be a lawyer. You love to talk. You have good arguments. So I think it was literally ingrained into me, that you're going to be. So I never not known myself to be not wanting to be a lawyer, and
Right.
I literally went full speed ahead on that trajectory. Because I also love politics as well, and so for me, I
Okay.
felt all the politicians in my country, a lot of them are lawyers, and so for me, law was always going to be in my future.
Totally. And so like what was your experience like going through law school and all that? I know you got an LLM in New York City actually.
Mhm.
But like what was your experience like going through law school?
Well, it was good. Initially I left Jamaica and went to college in the States at Macalester College in Minnesota, St. Paul.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, missed that note. All right. What did you think of
and
that?
loved it. Best experience of my life. Have some of my best friends from there,
How'd you end up out there, Minnesota?
So because Minnesota had a lot of focus on international kids, and they had a lot of, it was very international. So I really wanted to go there. They were, kind of vetting us kind of recruiting us from my school. I went to Campion College, one of the best schools. Well, I would say the best school in Jamaica, because
Okay.
I think it's rivalry. And so I wanted to go there because I wanted to do like a forensic scientist. I wanted to do chem and law. So my parents was like, okay, go and do the sciences first, and then you come back and get your law degree. And so that's how I went to Macalester, because I was initially majoring in chemistry and poli-sci, and then changed to poli-sci and into human rights. So that's how I ended up there, because, I was recruited. A lot of people from my school went there before. It was very international. I wanted to have that different experience, to leave
Yeah.
Jamaica and have that experience.
How
at
long did you?
Carribean.
That's amazing. How long did you stay out there?
So 4 years,
Okay.
so 09 to 2013.
And
That's,
you were at McAllister for that long?
yeah, the
Wow.
4 year, got my bachelor's
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Callisto. Yeah.
So, and then you actually went back to New York because you got your. Tell us about that experience in Manhattan.
So before I go that, so right after McAllister, I
Oh, go
went
ahead.
back to Jamaica and did an accelerated law program.
Okay.
The law program is normally 3 years. I did it in 2, right?
Okay.
Because they allow you, based upon your GPA before, to do an accelerated program. So it was law school for me was very intense.
Right.
Fortunately, everything I had to do, like curriculums that were spread out about 2 years, to be in one, for example, so you do what would be 1.5 year, you would do 1.5 years in 1 year, that's how they space it out. And it was intense, but really good. To me, it was very fulfilling. I had another friend, she was from Canada, and she came to Jamaica just because her mother was became a minister, like moved back from Canada to Jamaica, and she became a minister, a member of parliament. So she ended up being in Jamaica, come along for the right to be in the Caribbean. So
Wow.
I had like a good support
That's
system with
great.
friends
Yeah.
too. So it was for me intense, but good. I knew that's what I wanted to do, no doubts, being in law school there.
Being in law school, what did you sort of gear towards, like the program, or like what did you like the most?
Well, so initially, how we do it in Jamaica, you have an intense program of the theory, and then you go on to a practical school.
Mhm.
And so with the intense program of theory, I did, like, eventually in the second year of the accelerated thing, I started doing some human rights work,
Okay.
some constitutional work with a program that was started by the constitutional law professor who recruited me. So I geared towards a lot of the rights work, which I guess is not a surprise, because at McAllister I did a human rights concentration and international studies.
Yeah.
Did that. And then in the practical side of things, I did some rights work, but I focused on working at different firms during my time in the practical part. So 2 years for the theory, which is normally 3 years, which was downsized to 2. And then the practical part, I went to Nora Manley, and during that part, you just go and it's like intense. You do advocacy, you're learning the practical parts of law. And then, but while I was doing that, I was working at a firm, doing litigation things, doing contracts. So I more so focus on like doing actual internships while in the practical section.
What's your advice for somebody like in law school? How can they take advantage of law school in the best way for the best outcomes while becoming an attorney?
Okay. Well, I do think in terms of taking advantage of the best outcomes, I think definitely look into programs that you think that interest you.
Yeah.
And get involved in that. So whether it be clubs, and when my LLM experience, I learned from the ground running, and also networking. So also get into the clubs that you need to get into. So in my LLM, I was part of like the IP group, because I was interested in IP law.
Yep.
And I'd also say, if you can get some internships, some solid internships in areas that you're interested in, because you don't want to be a fish out of water when you leave law school.
Right. That's right.
Be able to have built some of that skill up. So I would recommend internships, aligning yourself with different clubs, and being active in that. So even while in my short time at the LLM, I was the LLM rep, for example, the Black Law Students Association. Whichever group, I made sure to have some sort of impact. So don't just be in the group just to be in there.
Right. So like, what are these groups? I think I was part of a group or two, and I just don't remember them doing that much. Like, what's the best way to get the most out of the group? Like, try to bring in speakers and get to know the speakers, and really kind of study up on it a little bit. For sure. So I would say, being part of even getting speakers in, and that's a way for you to network when you get when you get visibility, right? To the outside of law school, and getting visibility with those people. Those people may have connections that may be useful for your career going forward. So that happened a lot with the Black Lawyers, Black Students Association, that helped. And I think the IP group,
which I should have been more active in, but some of my friends became more active than I did, and I had more activism in other clubs, is, you know, being part of the papers because some of them run journals, right? So being part of the review of the
That's
papers.
true.
So that's what I would say you should do in that, in law school. Obviously it looks different for each. So in Jamaica, for example, you still have groups, but I think it's slightly different from the US perspective, but there's still groups you can be a part of that have their own initiatives. You can create your own initiatives, right?
Sure.
The schools are very open to that. And internships, I would say, very, very important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but there's so many things I feel like could have been done better, in my experience.
The
So
Lord knows everything works out the way it's
it
supposed
does. I know, I know. So I know I kind of skipped over to New York, but like, tell me
to.
like what you were doing like a lot of internships and volunteer roles and that sort of stuff. Like, tell us about that. That was like 2011.
In 2011, all the way back to 2011, because I became a lawyer in 2017. That was the first time I became a lawyer. I
Okay,
began
all right.
internships, legal internships, way before, from 2011. So I
Okay,
would have
bring
worked.
me from 2011 to 2017.
Okay, so from 2011, I would have worked with Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society,
Wow.
and I did a lot of just even training police on human rights, and how they deal with how to respect the rights of citizens. So I remember being a part of that training.
Yep.
I also would have done one of the special rapporteur wanted some sort of work on torture in Jamaica, and the
Wow.
state of the law there. So I would have been able to contribute to that. So that would have
You
been
say
20
torture?
torture. So the ICCPR, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the I guess there's a section that says, there shall be no laws that will promote torture, or that kind of thing, respect the right to life. So they're doing a review of that, right?
Yep.
And I was a part of doing that review and submitting that report, and
Wow.
what I produced was used in the actual meeting by the representatives. So that was 2011, where Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society.
Okay.
Thereafter, the Office of the Public Defender, right? And I
Wow.
got to go to the prisons. There was actually some rights issues in the prisons where they said they weren't being offered proper medical care, particularly those who were suffering from HIV, and so I did some of that. Also did some rights work there too, in terms of police brutality.
Yep.
And some massacre that happened years ago. There was a commission of inquiry, and they wanted some sort of report on the massacre of people with dreadlocks that happened years ago.
Really?
So I did work on that.
Wow.
And then even after the Office of the Public Defender, even while I was at Macalester, the human rights, I did work at I think it's called the Human Rights Center, and that was more so in the international law things, and we would track states' compliance with international law
Okay.
objectives. So the UPR, for example. I'm not remember all the things because it was so long ago. And then the next thing after that, the Legal Rights Center. So which is what would have been the last thing before I left Macalester, is then we did work for low income. And I felt full circle with when George Floyd, the situation came around, because a lot of the things that I was working on at the Legal Rights Center centered on police brutality.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, things like, so I even saw a full jury trial, participated in that. So even before I became a lawyer, I was building that groundwork, doing several internships that
Right.
were connected.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Do the practical stuff and build
Yes.
your resume, your knowledge.
Yeah.
And then some firm comes along and gets to snatch you up, and they get all your talent, right? So
and then onwards then it became firms.
Right,
and,
then it became firms.
So
How did you get into working at Stanbrook Prudhoe?
Okay, so I was still in New York, clerking for a judge in New York.
Yeah. How did you like Manhattan, by the way?
Loved it. Initially it's a little bit jarring because you're used to you're in a city, so it's kind of like you know,
Yeah.
but I came to love it, you know, loved it tons. The hustle and bustle of things, the ease of just getting around different restaurants, you
Yep.
know, yeah, Broadway, all that stuff, loved it.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I was in New York searching, doing my networking while clerking for the judge, because, you know, I thought I was going to be in New York. And then I
Really?
got solicited by this firm, you know, I guess for my LinkedIn, they asked, you know, they had a recruiter who came into my DMs for the use of the new terminology, but really my email from LinkedIn, and yeah, and I just was open to it because, you know, like why not? And I still get to be in the Caribbean. I still would get some of my goals in terms of what I was looking for. And so yeah, I just gave my resume, did the interview. I did 2 or 3 interviews, and bam, here I am at
Wow.
Stanbrook
And you were
Prudhoe.
just, how long ago was that?
So that would have been in about April of 2020, last year, right?
Wow.
Right.
So after the
Yeah.
pandemic?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So that's
So now we're on the cups of coming out. Yeah.
so were you in New York during the pandemic?
Yeah, in the latter part. So
Okay, the latter part.
because I went to New York in 2022, right? Yeah, in 2022. Yeah, because I
You
did
know,
the.
if I knew you back then, we would have invited you to our we had an event in Manhattan
Oh, nice.
this past June. It
Mhm.
was a lot of fun. We're gonna probably do one again. But
Right.
if I had known Anna Kay, I would have been like, hey, come to our event, our mixer,
I'd
and
have loved to come
connect
because I
with
went to
all
a
of
few
us.
mixers.
What's that?
I would have loved to come. I went to a few mixers.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, so you're like, yeah, Caribbean, okay, I think I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll go there.
Yes, and
So
I was
like
interested
what
in Turks and Caicos. I had a friend from Turks and
oh,
Caicos.
Turks and Caicos, that's what it
Yeah,
was. You're just like, yeah,
yeah,
I'll go practice law there. I mean, that's incredible. You probably get 5,000 applications a day.
yeah.
Um,
And I like the fact that I could still I could practice in different jurisdictions. So it wasn't just Turks and Caicos. They were offering me to go to Ghana. I'd never been to Ghana. We know the finding of oil. Curious about that. And
sure.
then I would still be able to practice in Jamaica because, you know, the firm practices across the Caribbean, so I would be able to still be able to use my Jamaican practicing certificate.
Okay, so when you say across the Caribbean, you still need to be certified in each little country or whatever.
For sure, for
Okay.
sure. So even so, I I we have different attorneys calling different jurisdictions, and it's only the ones that are called in that particular jurisdiction that are allowed to work on the particular matters in those jurisdictions, or at least to put their names on it. So I would have been involved in I'm in the background on, obviously with the client's consent, on some Turks and Caicos matters, but I'm not
Okay.
involved as a lawyer, because I'm not called there yet. But fully, my name is on the Ghana things because I'm a Ghana attorney on the Jamaican matters, things like that. So that's how it works: is that you can practice visibly in the jurisdiction in which you are called in.
What does that mean, called in? Does that mean barred in?
Barred in. So the
Okay.
terminology in our parts of the world, the Caribbean,
Okay. Yeah. Right,
called
because I
barred.
hear England's like called to the bar, like that sort of
Yes.
thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I get it.
That you're barred in.
So at Stanbrook Prudhoe, you engage in cross Caribbean representation. Tell us some of the issues that you're handling at the firm. I know transactional, litigation, regulatory. What are you dealing with?
So in terms of what we're dealing with, Stanbrook Prudhoe, first of all, we specialize in doing like enforcement of foreign judgments, very complex insolvency matters that end up being cross-border. We also do asset tracing, and we also are willing to do the matters that people don't want to take on at all, right?
Really?
We want to do the nitty, we want to do the hard work. In fact, we will even support a firm that thinks they don't want to be,
Okay.
they don't have the
Okay.
capacity. We will do all the
Right.
good
And in
work.
fact, you recently did I think maybe in Jamaica, you and another young lady, I think, put on a conference or a seminar about about doing referrals. Is that correct? Yeah. So
Yes,
you guys are really into that sort of thing. So
yes. So
um,
we
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
so I was saying, so we do that. So even in Guyana, what the work that I do in Guyana. I think Stanbrook Prudhoe is uniquely placed to do the work that we do in Guyana, especially because we do a lot of work challenging the government and their policies and their decisions. A lot of judicial review, administrative law. And because we're foreigners, we don't get any backlash that may come because we're disconnected from it, right? And we are more emboldened to act the way that we need to without fear. So in Guyana, I do a lot of judicial review challenging just the enforcement of these permits for the petroleum development, and so whether it be they're inadequate, right, according to the standards for environmental law, which feeds into international law, or it's adequate, but it's not being followed, right? So I've been doing there's several litigation matters concerning that. There's also a big ticket item challenging the constitutionality, in fact, of the authorization of the permits and the greenhouse gas emissions that flow from that. So literal climate change, that would be your, kind of ticket item, climate change litigation, the constitutionality of that. So, and as you can imagine, these cases come with a lot of press because of this is something that is supposed to change Guyana's life, right?
Right.
And we have this counteracting issue as to how it's being done. So that's what we kind of do. We come in, we do a lot of work challenging governments. So you'll find us do a lot of judicial review, not just in Guyana. We do that in Turks and Caicos. We've actually developed that reputation in Guyana. So we've been solicited for other judicial reviews that's challenging the government on even issues of indigenous rights, and things on police rights coming through the pipeline. So
when you say, and I just want to be clear, when you say judicial review, you're saying decisions that were made, like you're going in and you're reviewing the law based on the decisions that were made by a judge.
So these are prerogatives. So when you say judicial review, you're reviewing, says what you guys know as administrative law. So you're challenging decisions of public authorities, right? So for example, in one of the cases, we're challenging the decision of the Environmental Protection Agency as to how it's enforcing certain financial assurances. That is part of the permit, right? So we're saying that the financial assurances haven't been adhered to, and we're challenging them to make order of mandamus to follow what is being done.
And people come to you to do these challenges. Obviously, they say, "Hey, this isn't right. We need Stanbrook Prudhoe to like come and look at this and challenge it." And and is that sort of an appellate process or no?
It looks more like an appellate process because you're not gonna have it's more so on the submissions and the law versus cross-examining witnesses and so forth. It's not that, especially with the judicial review. The constitutional law matter will be a full trial process where you have witnesses and the witness statements and everything. But the judicial review is more so, you ask for these specific declarations, mandamus. You could have declaration as well, and then there is the process of reviewing the law. You do your submissions before the court on that, and the judge decides. It's not no examination, so it's more like an appellate process in that.
Okay. Got it. So, and I know I just mentioned this, but tell us about your fee sharing and co-counseling presentation at the Jamaican Bar Association. So you're obviously involved in a lot of co-counseling and like fee sharing, and it is a very big piece of U.S. law right now, like attorneys referring cases and fee sharing. I'm wondering if that's sort of the same thing. And are you sort of referring to when a law firm, like you mentioned earlier, a smaller law firm comes to you and says, "Hey, we need Stanbrook Prudhoe to like help us with this." So, then you're talking about the fee sharing and you're talking about the co-counseling piece, right?
Yeah. So for sure, it's definitely like a smaller firm not being able to handle, and they want not just the manpower in terms of number of people to help them get through it, but they may want expertise, right? For example, because I said we do a lot of insolvency, or one of our partner, Tim Prudhoe, he specializes in that, right? So they would want that insolvency specialist, and so that agreement would be, okay, this is the piece that you're going to do, and there's a fee sharing arrangement, literal and the client obviously knows, and the client consents, and that is incorporated in the agreement. Obviously, you do your checks and balances because you want to make sure that you can work with this lawyer well, right? And this relationship will work, and they understand what the arrangement is. So those things are worked out. Similarly, I had a friend here in Jamaica. Here he has this big sort of shareholders agreement that's going to happen. That's some funding with some big bank, and they want to have a piece of the pie in the company. And so he felt like, your firm knows more of that. So he hit me up, and we did a fee sharing agreement so that he can get some of that expertise on it, as well as to get some help, right, with the manpower. So that's basically how it is, but it's different arrangements. So it could be the small firm hiring us to partner with them, or it could be, you know what, I am just going to give it to you because of one, conflict of interest issues, and two, I want to be on the background of the things, and so you be the front. I'm only going to be here to advise you on the specialist law. So for example, some of our cases, if somebody is an environmentalist and we are not environmentalists, originally, obviously having done a lot of environmental law cases, you'll get more knowledgeable in it. But we have a lawyer who she will rely on for a lot of the environmental expertise, for example. And so the arrangement looks different based upon what the matter is. And sometimes it's a full referral, a full, downright referral. But, from my presentation, there are parameters where in some jurisdictions, for example, Jamaica, you're not supposed to accept a fee for referral. So
really?
There won't be a fee in that. You have to have active participation still in the matter in order to be sharing a fee on it.
Okay. Right?
See, there's no
ethically. So even if you're both lawyers, the one lawyer has to have a hand in it, or like do some advising and
something in order to accept a fee. Otherwise, it's illegal. In Jamaica, that is not for all jurisdictions, but certainly.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you've looked into anything in the US, but I think it's like a big thing that lawyers do now, and mostly personal injury. I think. I know you don't, it doesn't sound like you do personal injury really, but what do you know, like what the referral fees would be for personal injury there?
I don't know what the referral fee would be for personal injury. Certainly not in Jamaica is it legal. I do know that it is in America because I did a lot. My presentation, which is posted, had a lot of the American rules, the ABA rules, and there are certain parameters still that there are in America, but it's not illegal.
Right. No, there are rules, but I think every jurisdiction has like the ethics rules, every state. But people take the case and just give it to another attorney and take a fee, and they're not really. It seems like it's kind of a funnel, like a lot of people are doing some work on it, but not a lot for personal injury. So I think it is like that's interesting to know that in your jurisdictions it's an issue too. And congratulations on a job well done with that. That seminar that you put on, the presentation sounded pretty cool.
Thank you. Yes, it was good. It was received very well.
That's good. Yeah. Good for you. So, like, what do you like most about the certain jurisdictions that you're practicing in now? I mean, I know you spent some time in the U.S., Minnesota, New York, but like, what do you like most about the jurisdictions?
I think I like what makes, first of all, what makes this job great is the dynamism with dealing with different types of law. Because you may think we're all based upon the common law, right? Which you would be familiar with if you know New York law. But in every jurisdiction, they have their specific things. What I like most is the nuance, going into and diving into the nuances of the different jurisdictions. I wouldn't say I like one more over the other because I am a student of the law. I love the law. I love the research.
That's great.
So when I'm able, I find the nuances of things and like being able to figure that out and like, I think that's what I like the most about doing the cross-border. There's none that I really like more than the other, quite frankly, because I consider it another problem-solving exercise that I'm able to unravel and, and put puzzles back together in a way that they should be put in for the purposes, best interest of my client.
Okay.
But so what I would enjoy is the dynamism of the different areas of law. I can't assume. So not because the law in Jamaica or common law, and even just the court rules. So, for example, as a litigator, you have to be checking, your civil procedure rules is like your Bible, right? You have to be checking that. And you can't be assuming because the timeline is this or this is the process in one jurisdiction, it's the other. No, to be always on your feet, always being in the rules and checking what the situation is. So I think I like the dynamism of just all of that, just being
Yeah.
never a mundane day, never,
Wow. Yeah, it's all
you know,
different stuff,
yeah.
right? What about the beaches? Are you like tempted to be there all the time, or what? Like, how does
Oh,
that?
no. Remember, I grew up in Jamaica.
I know,
So
I
I
know.
love
So
the
it's
beach.
probably
My
it's just fun. I don't know. It's more like, I guess
So
not.
we are able to exist in paradise, but not
Yes,
all
I know.
there.
It's
But
more
I
novel
definitely,
for me. For you, it's just the background for now.
but I
It's just
definitely
me
go to the
saying I
beach,
think that Stanbrook Prudhoe should bring lawyer stories out there and interview everybody, and I'll stay in a little hut on the beach or something.
right? Yeah.
All right,
But I do go to the beach. I try to go to the beach monthly because
there
the
you
beach
go.
is my favorite place. Some Caribbean
There you go.
people don't even like the beach. Like my
Yeah.
cousins, they don't really like the beach. They love the rivers because we
Maybe
have
you
a lot
should tell them to go to
of
Minnesota.
right? But I like rivers. So we have great rivers too in
Sure.
Jamaica, like
All right.
fabulous. Yeah, and
All right.
waterfalls and everything. So
Oh, that is nice.
that's an alternative to the beach.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
good. So did you have any mentors, Anna Kay?
Yes. So and I think they're very important to have.
Good.
At my prior firm, and she's still currently one of my mentors. She's actually the head of the General Legal Counsel in Jamaica, which is the big disciplinary body. And she is what we call King's Counsel.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology.
Sounds familiar, but I couldn't.
Basically, preeminent counsel. It's what they give them. It's the inner bar. Call them
Okay.
silk. It's within the normally within the Commonwealth countries that are no longer part of the monarchy, kind of, because we still have a governor general. They call them senior counsel. So for example, in
Okay.
Guyana, senior counsel. So she would be my mentor, and she's such a fabulous woman. She does, like I do. I've done both litigation and commercial. I don't
Okay.
like just to do one or the other, and I happily have gotten a chance to do both. So she does that. So not only is she good at, like, preeminent litigator, and I got the chance even before coming to Stanbrook to do some cross-border litigation with her, because I got to do work. I did a big trial in Turks and Caicos, and also did a big trial in Guyana prior to doing Stanbrook Prudhoe, almost like a foreshadowing of Stanbrook Prudhoe. And so she, I think, is one of my mentors. If I have any questions in terms of even just how I think to approach a matter, I talk to her. If I want to decide, just even not just strictly legal, even just how you think about how you want to approach your career, I defer to her. So yes, she would be my major mentor. I do have another mentor. Her name is Shirley Richards.
Nice.
And so I'm a Christian, so I also have, she's a Christian lawyer
Nice.
kind of mentor. And she's involved in, like, Christian advocacy, which I do help out with sometime in my spare time. So
spare time? You don't have any spare time. Come on,
spare
Anna.
time.
There's no spare time.
Definitely don't have any spare time, but those two ladies are my mentors.
So you were an adjunct tutor for Caribbean constitutional law.
Yes.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
But are there any huge distinction from USA con law, and anything like or anything really interesting we should know about Caribbean constitutional law? Okay. That is, like, very different than.
Oh, for sure. I think it's definitely different. In terms of, you guys have a federal system with the different states that does not exist here, does not exist in the Caribbean. In terms of us having, a two-tier thing in terms of a governor general and a prime minister. Governor general representing the Queen, and the prime minister actually being the head of the country, although the governor general is the head, but prime minister is the one who leads. I do think we don't have any sort of, in terms of the American process, in terms of impeachment processes specifically. Well, I would speak for Jamaica, because different jurisdictions have different nuances.
Yeah, right.
But most of them don't have an impeachment process. Jamaica is actually under constitutional review now. So I'd say that's a big thing. We do have, I know that you guys have, in terms of saving law clauses, that's a pretty big thing here in Jamaica, right? In terms of savings, and not just Jamaica, in the different jurisdictions as well, but particularly constitutions that are still similar to Jamaica, because some of them have changed into republics like Guyana and Belize. There's a saving law clause where all laws have just been frozen in time, considered to law that is good. And so you'll find a lot of controversial cases in terms of even just, I guess, gender rights, and just, you know, in terms of marriage, of same-sex marriages and so forth. And so that saves old laws. So you'll find those issues coming back, because obviously the laws that have been saved are the ones that, you know, some people would say are not so good. So we have that issue of all laws being saved, and once it has not been touched, right, you cannot do anything with it. So we recently had a case here in Jamaica where they were challenging the Bugre law, which is one of the laws that has been saved.
But the what the Bugre law?
Bugre law.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, it's not just same sex, but intercourse, but it's intercourse that's, you know, more so on that end of the spectrum. And so so Bugre is basically,
Tell us more about that. No, I'm just kidding, you don't have to.
No.
Okay, so keep going.
So it saves that law, and so the court was reluctant, said that their hands are tied, the law has not been touched. Whereas in other jurisdictions, they've touched the law, so they've been able to repeal it, and and so there has been a lot of litigation surrounding, that sort of the saving of certain laws, and whether it can be challenged to overturn them, because there's this whole idea of the Constitution is a living, breathing instrument,
right?
And it goes beyond that. So I would say the savings law clause is the big thing. There are some other things, but that's what's coming to my mind right now. But certainly very different. We don't have this filibustering thing too that, that's different.
Right.
As well in the US, which I know is a big thing there.
Maybe you can like write a book on that sometime, or like an article about distinctions between.
Oh, actually, probably I could. Having been and having now been qualified in the US, and I had to do some con law.
Are you licensed in the US?
Yeah, I'm licensed in New York.
New York, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, you got your LLM here, so.
Yeah, I got my LLM, and then after I did the bar.
Oh, okay.
Bar one go, and yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. It's pretty sweet. Tell us what sort of cases you're working on now.
So the cases that I'm working on now, right now, are the Guyana cases, because I am main point for Guyana right now. And those are the environmental law cases that focus on judicial review, specifically challenging the Environmental Protection Agency's decisions with respect to the permits, the petroleum development permits that have been granted to Exxon. And then there's that constitutional matter. Also, I'm doing some personal injury.
You are? Okay.
But it was not the run of a mill. It's actually concerns the question of whether the mismanagement of a dump has caused respiratory issues.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So that's sort of environmental a little bit.
Yes, as well.
Okay. All right.
Sort of environmental as well, but it's personal injury based. I have a straight personal injury from Anguilla.
Okay.
That deals with a boat accident that happened. Unfortunately. So that would be not I guess, so that would be typical personal injury there. So that would be the main things I'm working on in terms of on the commercial side. Have done some agreements in terms of shareholder agreements, drafting those things, giving some advice on, as I said, with this government taking shares and not government, this bank taking shares on this company, and the different parameters around that. So doing some of that work as well on the commercial end of things.
So when you're doing cases for Anguilla and work, like, are you doing it virtually, like remotely?
Yes, remotely. So that Zoom court.
Zoom court, okay.
Yeah, we have a free share relationship with another attorney there.
Okay, gotcha.
So I do interface with him through that. So even in Guyana too, we appear virtually on Zoom, but we are going to be in Guyana shortly. And so there are some things that are in person as well, not all are Zoom, because sometimes you may say we want to be in person because sometimes advocacy can be more effective when you are in person,
right?
Because so strategically we choose which ones would be if we have the option to be via Zoom versus in person. we have that, luckily, that helps the work of Stanbrook Prudhoe. But don't get us wrong, we will travel wherever we need to travel to get to what needs to be done. That is what we pride ourselves on. We do difficult cases, where hard places, right? And we travel where we need to, because some of the jurisdictions like Montserrat, most we travel to those to get the work done as well. So we're not afraid of doing traveling and doing what we need to do. We're definitely built on that. We come to you, clients see us, we have great turnarounds.
I mean, they'd probably want to go to you though. I mean, if you're in the Caribbean, I mean, I think they'd probably say, "We'll come out to see you." But yeah,
yes,
that makes sense. Yes, I
Mhm.
do understand that you obviously attorneys take their work very seriously, and you will go see clients like when you really need to be there. So you answered like kind of the cases that you're working on. Who are the clients that are coming to Stanbrook Prudhoe?
Well, it's very diverse.
Okay.
So in terms of the clients, you have people from get a lot of referrals from other firms abroad. So it would be from the US, from the UK. So their clients. So banks are some of our clients. We do have the activist groups, as I've told you.
Okay. Yep.
So that would be connected to like the indigenous rights groups, indigenous rights litigation, as well as the environmental litigation. And we have the normal client walk through the door, right? Or who sees us on the website,
Sure.
who has a matter, who they think, okay, they see our reputation because we've been consistently ranked on Legal 500, consistently ranked on Chambers. So they'll see that and come through the door to us. And then also it's consistent work, right? So if you do work for this particular organization, they continue to
come back.
Give you the work. So in a lot of ways, especially on the commercial side of things, we end up being outside in-house counsel, right? So we do the work, the in-house counsel work for a lot of smaller businesses. So I think it's definitely dynamic and varied. I wouldn't say it's one type of client. And because we have that luxury because of the nature of our firm, having practice in so many jurisdictions, right? And we're not confined to any practice area, right? In particular. So as you can see, my litigation is, you would think that environmental law is so much more different from personal injury matters, but we're not afraid to do the different types of law. We're going to meet you where you're at, and we're willing to just, to uncover everything and to do the difficult.
Right. So if something sort of bleeds into another area of law, you're there to actually do that too.
Oh, for sure.
How many jurisdictions between you and all of your colleagues there at the firm? How many jurisdictions do you think you cover?
I would say we cover about 13 or so.
13, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. What do you like most about the practice at Stanbrook Prudhoe?
So as I said, the opportunity to be able to practice in different, that was a draw, really. The opportunity to be able to practice in different jurisdictions, and to be in paradise while doing it.
Yeah, of course.
I'm near to my family, which is in Jamaica. Currently, I'm in Jamaica, but even when I go to Turks and Caicos, which I should be there by the end of the year, I just have a short plane right away. So come back. It's definitely the different jurisdictions. I don't like don't like to be bored. Not that I've ever been bored. I've always done complex commercial litigation and complex contracts work, but I like the fact that I'm looking at doing different law at different moments in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you want to talk at all about the indigenous rights just in general, or no?
Not necessarily, because as I said, we're just being engaged. I do not necessarily want to go delve into that. But if you have any specific questions on that.
Not really. I took a class once in college. I went to UMass. It was in legal studies. So anyway, let's move on. So Stanbrook Prudhoe specializes, as we've mentioned a couple times, cross-border disputes such as fraud, asset tracing, contentious insolvency, and the enforcement of overseas arbitral judgments. Are you actually seeing more and more of these type of things? I feel like there's like an uptick of fraud and that sort of stuff, or has it just always been the same?
Would it be? I think certainly there is more visibility of fraud. And so
Yeah.
it looks like an uptick. As to whether statistically it is actually more, I wouldn't be able to tell you that, but definitely we've seen an uptick, in terms of visibility on that.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And so tell us a little bit about AI. Like, what's your you have an interest in AI, is that correct?
Yes,
So
and
do
like
you,
privacy matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, so tell me, do you think how is it gonna affect the practice of law? And do you think
I
lawyers are gonna
definitely,
be obsolete? And like, what's your general,
that's a big debate. I definitely don't think it's gonna make us
no,
make us obsolete.
right,
I don't think the AI can do certain in terms of synthesizing material and the analysis that we're able to do. Certainly don't think that AI can do that and will take that over. I do think it will make our lives easier when we get it down pat in terms of even just sort of research. So just like how we use LexisNexis and Westlaw
sure,
now, it'd be a new source of how we research.
right,
Um, so like even, and we have to be very careful now, because even I was testing the AI 2 days ago
yeah,
on some giving me some cases. Every single case was, I guess it's more developed because you have Paxton and Calidus for US.
yeah,
It's not so much developed yet for other jurisdictions. And so I asked for UK cases because it's common law, so you'll find on this particular issue on admissions by adverse parties. Every single case was, because you have to double check, because in fact
yeah,
there's a case in the US where a guy was believe he was suspended because he went to court and just used AI, and none of the cases were real. So we have an ethical
right, right. I think I read something about that.
yes, we have an ethical obligation to check it over.
That's
So
like being a law review student, right? Like, you got to check everything,
yes,
check the
yes.
citations and all that.
I checked it and none of them were right. So certainly I think
Wow. Oh,
I
wow, wow.
I certainly think we have a long, long way to go, but I definitely think it's a good thing in terms of even just our ethical obligation of delivering efficient service,
Okay.
right? And to have service to be up to technologically act, and to be in line with technological standards, which is
Okay.
required of us as attorneys. So we can't just ignore those things. I think we do have an ethical obligation to ensure that we are operating efficiently, which is what technology does. So I think it will help the research to be better. It will help the contract review to be better. Certain things you don't have to spend a long time on.
Yeah, but isn't that going to take away from our billing?
Yes, it will in terms of, but we'll find
We'll find new
new
ways
new
to bill.
we'll find new ways of in terms of new types of law. We'll get to some of the things that were probably glossed over before. We'll spend more time on them. Because I was listening to a podcast. I listened to a lot of like data privacy, so Bloomberg Law,
Okay.
privacy podcasts, and one of the areas of law that apparently definitely will be taken over is just strict document review, apparently.
Yeah, wow. A lot
So
of
for
people who do
those,
that
yeah,
for
so
big
some people
firms.
who do that, and just even just treading through.
Yeah,
I think if your practice is strictly that, perhaps you definitely need to pivot.
pivot
But
a little
in
bit, yeah.
terms of the analysis and actual advocacy, we get to spend more time on that and deliver better service, and even deal with more matters because
Yeah.
we're more efficient. I definitely don't think, and it certainly opens up new areas of law for us. So we've seen AI is a big thing in terms of the regulations surrounding it, in terms of privacy matters. It has spawned that, so new areas of law coming in, and that's what makes law exciting. We don't want to remain stagnant. I am excited as a young lawyer
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
what is to be, and so for me that's why AI and privacy interests me. I'm about to do a presentation on
Oh,
privacy
cool.
in Jamaica soon. I think it's on the presentation October 19th, so I'll be preparing for that
Wow.
shortly,
Okay.
and trying to get the privacy certification. But yeah, I think these are exciting things. I am not worried about my about my job being
No,
taken.
that's amazing. I'd like to see some of those slides from your presentation.
For sure. I'll
Maybe
send
now
it
that
to you.
we're connected on LinkedIn, I could check out
Yeah,
some of that
for
stuff.
sure. It will be posted, I'm sure.
That's awesome. Anna Kay, did I leave anything out? Is there something else you wanted to talk about today?
No, I don't think you left anything out. All I would say is just keep Stanbrook Prudhoe in mind. I know that you have a very
Yeah.
international audience. We are here to serve the needs of all types of clients, and it could be firms, as we said, because we're into the fee sharing arrangements, and we will do the nitty-gritty work, the work that is not so glamorous. We have no qualms and no shames about doing that. And if you have matters and you in different jurisdictions like ours, particularly across the Caribbean, we are definitely, I think, the best option.
What about the resorts? Do you represent any of those places? Like, maybe, I know you don't do PI.
I know I don't do, so in Turks and Caicos, I know that on our commercial side, there's lots of representation on that end. They're not in the other jurisdictions. The other jurisdictions now are mostly litigation. But obviously we are growing every day, and hopefully in other jurisdictions we will have more of that. Yeah.
Why not? No, that's awesome. Well, Anna K. Brown, thanks for coming on. It's great to talk to you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.